Hey everyone! A couple years ago I did a DIY where I fixed a broken piece of pottery using a technique called Kintsugi. In that one I tried to do it as traditional, I guess, as you could with the materials that I had access to. The project turned out good, in my opinion, but unfortunately I just didn't have the access to a lot of the stuff that they traditionally use, like the kind of lacquer that is used to glue them together and the gold powder that they use. But in the comments of that video, I've seen people asking me to do a more simple, approachable, I guess, version of Kintsugi. I guess it's probably a bastardization of what the whole process really is, but it still kind of gives you the look of it. So I was going to do that today. I have a little Maneki Neko coin bank that recently fell and broke, so it ended up being the perfect little canvas for this new Kintsugi project. So let's get started. The full list of stuff that I use for this project will be in the description box below. Obviously, I have the broken piece of pottery. This time I used super glue to stick the pieces together. Easy and fast. In my previous Kintsugi project, I was trying to get as close to the traditional process as I could without buying all the expensive lacquers and stuff. So typically, lacquer is used to glue the pieces together, and it ends up taking quite a bit of time because you have to wait for it to cure and set up. So you have to apply the lacquer and then hold the pieces together and leave it like that for quite a while. Obviously, super glue works almost immediately, so it makes doing this project very fast. I did want the cracks to be filled in though, and I also had some chunks that were completely missing, so I needed to fill those in too. So for this, I used some 2-part epoxy putty paste stuff. I mixed up the paste, and then for the cracks, I just squished the paste in as good as I could into all of the cracks. I also started filling in the big spaces as well. I knew that I was going to go back and fill these spots in more later so that they were flush with the piece of pottery, but for now, I just got as much as I could in there so that I could come back later after this initial layer of epoxy cured, and then I could kind of layer more on. While it was still wet, I tried scraping off as much of the extra putty as I could, and then I used a rag to wipe off the rest. I came back a couple hours later, once that first layer had time to set up, and I filled the big holes the rest of the way, and any of the cracks that needed a little bit more. It got a little tricky in some of these curved spots, so I tried using some tape to help keep the shape of the cat as the epoxy cured. And then I set that aside overnight to completely cure. The next day I removed the tape and then used a blade to clean up the rest of the extra epoxy. The big gaps needed a bit more of a cleanup job, but the blade also helped clean up the small bits that the rag left behind. This is probably more of a perfectionist thing, like you could probably just get away with painting the gold over any of the extra bits of the epoxy that stuck out more than the cracks or the gaps. But, well, I'm a perfectionist, so I spent quite a while cleaning it up as best as I could. And then, time for the gold leaf. Using a thin brush, I painted the gold leaf on over the cracks. Initially, I was trying really hard to keep the paint strictly where the epoxy was, but my brush was a little bit too big, so inevitably, it got onto the actual piece. Thankfully, once the paint was dry, I could use the same blade scraping technique to remove the excess paint. And once I was done with that, the repair was done. I think it turned out pretty good. I guess the only thing that I wish was different was the gold leaf. In traditional Kintsugi, the gold just looks better. Gold dust is used and it's buffed into the lacquer and then polished, so it has this beautiful solid gold look to it. Whereas this gold leaf paint still has kind of a grainy look to it, Like you can definitely see like the flakes of gold in it, I guess. And for this piece, I feel like it blends into the paint detail of the original piece too much. So I think it would have been better if, like, you know, it looked more of like the traditional Kintsugi. But I mean, this isn't the traditional way to do it, so yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed today's project. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all of that good stuff. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment down below. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, the links to those will be down below. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much to my patrons for helping me produce this video. If you like my videos and have learned something from them, please consider supporting me on Patreon to help me continue to make them. It's totally optional. I'll still be making videos either way. It just helps me be able to put out better stuff. A link will be down below, or you can just click up here in the corner.